Voted Lansing's best repair shop, Professional Fleet Services can meet all your repair needs quickly and courteously. Services include brake repair, steering and suspension, air conditioning, electrical, and maintenance services. Schedule an appointment today with the shop that has an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau. Call Professional Fleet Services Monday through Friday at 517-316-7999.
Hi, my name is Sam. I'm the owner of Professional Fleet Services. Today we're going to go through and we're going to check out the Jaguar S-Type suspension. I've had many of these vehicles come to my shop and many customers frustrated trying to determine what's causing the clunks, the rattles, loose parts in the front end and rear of the vehicle. And these vehicles will go from shop to shop to shop and get many different answers as to what could be causing it and many different prices on what it's going to cost to fix it. And many times they're misdiagnosed or not diagnosed correctly, and then parts are changed, but the result is still the same. They still make noise. So we're going to go over today and kind of show you how to properly check these vehicles out, so you know what a bad part is, what a good part is, and how to properly check it so that you can determine that and make sure the parts are replaced right the first time and not a second or third time, because this stuff is very expensive to fix these days, and obviously you want to save money. So with that, we're going to start checking the vehicle out. Alright, so the first thing we're going to check is the lower ball joints. The lower ball joint is basically the part that's right at the bottom of the control arm, and it connects the control arm to what they call the spindle. The lower ball joint is a very common repair on this vehicle. They go bad all the time. They'll cause clunks and rattles over bumps, and they're often misdiagnosed because people try to check them the way you used to check a ball joint. And the way you check these ball joints is basically you just grab the tire with the vehicle up in the air and supported, and you push up and down with as much strength as you can on the tire. If there's movement up or down, that ball joint is bad. If there's no movement, the ball joint is good. And on this vehicle here, the ball joint is good. There's nothing wrong with it. We actually replaced these about 2 or 3 years ago on this vehicle when they were really, really bad. So one of the sources of clunks or rattles on this vehicle is the ball joints. So with that, that's how you check the ball joint. Alright, next thing we're going to check is the outer tie rod. These don't go bad as often, but they're very easy to check. Might as well show you how to do that real quick. The outer tie rod is the section here that bolts to the spindle. What you're going to do basically is take the wheel and go in and out motion. By pulling in and out, pushing in and out, you're looking for any movement here, up or down or side to side. And you can also grab the tie rod and pull up or down on it. There should be no up or down movement there, and you shouldn't feel anything in or out here. And that's how you would check the outer tie rod. Those will cause tire wear on the outside edges of the tire, in or out. It can cause, depending on how bad it is. So that's how you check an outer tie rod on this vehicle. Okay, next thing we're going to check on the front of the vehicle is we're going to check the strut. The strut is like the shock on most vehicles, and it goes up through the middle of this control arm, and it's got a bolt that goes through this way. There is a rubber bushing that's in the middle of that. Those bushings will go bad very often and cause clunks and rattles very similar to the ball joint. What you want to do is you want to basically either do it the same way as the ball joint and listen or look for movement in the bushing itself, or take a pry bar and you can put the pry bar in here and wedge it so that you can actually lift up and down between the strut and the tie rod and push up and down on it. If there's any movement in that bushing, you'll know that bushing is bad. This one obviously the new strut has been put on a few years ago, so there is no play in this one. This is probably one of the most common repairs we have come in. You can actually, instead of replacing the strut and spending thousands of dollars on front struts, you can replace just the bushing. And if you get a hold of me, I can get you a source on where to get those bushings at. You can actually pull the struts out, press the old bushings out, press new bushings in, and save hundreds of dollars by doing it that way. And you don't necessarily have to replace the whole strut. So it's similar to check it. You either do the up and down and look for movement there, or use a pry bar that will give you leverage to push up and down. And there's no play, that bushing is good. Okay, one of the last things we're going to check in this car is called a stabilizer link or sway bar link. What it does is it connects the sway bar down to the part of the lower control arm here. These are notorious for rattling. There'll be a really quick, sharp, snap rattle you'll get every time you hit a bump. Real quick rattle. The little ball and socket joint will go bad. The easiest way to check these is put it up on the hoist, grab a hold of it, and pull. And just pull up or down or side to side, in and out. You should feel no clunking, no looseness, no rattle. And when these things go bad, you can literally feel them rattle when you're pulling on them. And this one here is loose. You can actually hear the rattle. So I mean, you can hear and tell it's loose. And that is amplified, tenfold when you're hitting bumps and potholes on the roads. And that's usually what takes these out, is the constant hitting of potholes and just loose spots in the road. You'll get that worn out part. So that's pretty much the last part to check on the front end of the vehicle. And from here we'll move to the rear and check some of the common things that go bad on the rear of these vehicles. Alright, so we've moved to the rear of the vehicle, and we're going to go over some of the suspension parts back here that make noise and cause problems. The first one that I come across most often, again, is the rear strut bushing. That's the lower bushing that's the strut, bolt goes through, holds the strut in place. The same thing applies here as it did in the front. You can buy just these bushings now, press the old ones out without even having to remove the strut from the car, and put new bushings in, bolt it back together. And it saves you thousands of dollars of having to buy and replace the full strut assembly if only the bushings are bad and causing the clunking and tire wear on the vehicle. So same as the fronts, all you have to do is use a handy pry bar, and you're just looking for movement, lifting up and down, wedge it in there, between the strut and the control arm, and just go up and down with it. You're just looking for excessive play there. If there's no play, bushings are good. And that covers the strut bushing itself. Next we're going to check is the rear stabilizer links. Just like the fronts have them, your rears have stabilizer links. Both sides. Same as the front, you grab a hold of them and just give them a good tug forward and backward, and you're trying to feel for looseness, play, any clicking, rattling, any type of sound that shouldn't be there, because there should be none, or any movement that's there because there shouldn't be any. So pulling on them, these ones here are nice and tight, there's no play, those ones are good to go. Alright, next we're going to check the bushing that actually goes through the lower control arm and is bolted to the lower part of the spindle. This seems to be the bushing that goes bad in every one of these Jaguars. It's always the driver's side rear. And every time you get in the car, you'll hear like a creaking noise up and a creak noise down as you get in and out of the vehicle. Or if you hit a pothole or a small bump, you hear a constant er-eat type noise coming from that dried out bushing. What you're doing is, same as you check ball joints in the front, you're going to check this. You grab a hold of it, you push up and down, and you're looking for any movement at all coming from the spindle moving inside of the control arm. And on this vehicle, this one back here is bad. You can actually feel it clunking and see it moving. So this bushing going through the lower control arm is bad, and it will cause clunking. It could cause the rear end to sway and move and feel unsafe and loose on the road at higher speeds, and cause tire wear. So that's how you correctly check the bushing on the lower control arm that connects to your spindle or steering knuckle. Alright, next is your bushings that are on the lower control arm, where they attach to the frame of the vehicle. There's a rearward one and a forward one. And all you do on these, take a pry bar, and you're going to wedge it up between the arm and the frame and push backward on it, and it's going to move this. If there's movement there, this is going to move. And there should be little to no movement. If it's any bit excessive, you'll hear the clunking, you'll get really bad swaying in the rear, and they will be very noticeable. So just take a pry bar in, move it back and forth. You can force it to move a little, but it shouldn't move much at all. And then the same with the forward one, you do the same thing. Get your pry bar up in there, and you're going to wedge it, and you're going to just kind of pull up and down, and you're looking for excessive movement. This one's got a little bit of movement, and also if this forward one's bad, you'll be able to see this tire moving in and out, because it's actually going to push this tire that way. So if you push in and out on this bushing, and you see that tire moving, you know that bushing is bad. And you're going to do that on both sides of the vehicle for the rear of the vehicle. So with that, you've pretty much covered and checked your control arm bushings for the lower control arm. You've checked your lower strut bushings, which can be replaced separately, and you've checked your stabilizer links. And those are your most common rattles, clunks, loose parts that we find on these vehicles that come in on a regular basis.